river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, welcome to Be My Guest. Today we have back James B. Nicola, and he is our resident poet, and he is from New York City. He's also been a stage director, but he has written a lot of poetry books. Welcome back, James.
Thank you, Jen. So happy to be here.
You know, I looked out the window and I said, New York license plates. But I keep forgetting you drive all the way up here. You don't get a plane and then rent a car.
Oh, no. I drive.
So he was born in Worcester. And from Worcester, where'd you go?
From Worcester to Worcester. Worcester to New York.
Yeah.
Or New Haven in between.
And
Worcester, and I went to Clark for a few years, and then I went to Yale for a few years, and
Yeah.
so I was in New Haven, and then hopped to
Did you
New York
like
City.
Clark?
Loved
My
Clark.
grandfather went there and graduated.
Loved Clark, loved Yale, loved both.
Did you do theater at Clark?
I did. I played Biederman and the Firebugs my freshman year, and some people still remember it because I was the lead as a freshman at Clark. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I did some theater classes that I wasn't a theater major, but I hung around with all the.
Well, before we
those
get into the
people.
poetry, I was sharing with James. I don't know how many people realize it, but the famous actress Gertrude Lawrence is based in Upton. Her gravesite is based here, and it's under the Aldrich in the Lakeview Cemetery. It's under the Aldrich stone. You can go up there anytime, and there's a little bench dedicated to her. She was in The King and I. She was in the first one, 1951, with Yul Brynner as the king. And the music, I've still got it going on in my head. But anyway, she is local. She's right here at Upton, and she was buried in her gown that she danced, Shall We Dance, with Yul Brynner
Oh my gosh.
in The King and I. So they squashed that gown in, but it was beautiful. James, tell me about the history of your books now. You've got
Right.
a lot of them.
Well, the newest one I brought today to read from is called Fires of Heaven, Poems of Faith and Sense. So it's perfect for Unitarian libraries, for example, because they talk about stuff in their services, etc. And so that's the latest that just came out from Shanty Arts of Maine.
What is it? Is it a guy on the front? Paul, you got that?
The cover is William Blake image, and it is a supernatural kind of image with flames. So I have to find.
It's a guy with flames, right?
Well, it's a supernatural being.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a person. Hence, Fires of Heaven. But it's in this graphic. I mean, you can buy the book and see what the reference is, because William Blake wrote not only poetry and did calligraphy, but was also an artist in his own right. And I happened to pick up at a library book sale the complete graphics of a big fat William Blake complete.
You got the whole thing?
The whole thing.
How much?
It was $10,
That's
even
it?
used.
That's
even
beautiful.
even used,
Yeah.
it was $10, at a library sale. But I said, I don't need another book because I'm a bibliopath.
Yeah.
I don't need another book. I walked out and I got to go back, because I did see an exhibit of all that stuff at the Pierpont Morgan Library in New York City, and I go, I just got to have that because I love William Blake.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a wonderful resource for an image for the cover. For
That
this.
sounds
Fires of Heaven.
sci-fi, no?
It's 1700 sci-fi,
Yeah, okay.
but it's what you could call cover William Blake, Jerusalem, plate 35, then the Divine Hand. That's what this is.
That's the latest.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I don't know if you want me to mention the other ones first or to start with
of
this.
course, do it. Yeah.
Okay.
the
And then the
viewers may
previous one,
remember.
that I read from last time out, a year and a half or 2 years ago, this one is called Quickening, Poems of Faith and Sense, and this was published in India. And no, I'm sorry, the subtitle is
India.
Quickening Poems from Before and Beyond. So whereas this might have a little more reference to scripture or God, this will have less reference to God per se, but certainly to beyond the cosmos or before you were born or how you, etc. Quickening.
Awesome.
So that's interesting. And this one also, so this is from cyberwit.net in India. This one that came before that, you can find interviews on all of these through Be My Guest, because you've had me on for every single book.
He put these books on.
Yeah. And this is called Out of Nothing, Poems of Art and Artists. And there's several references to the Worcester Art Museum, and if you look online to this interview, you'll hear me do one about a child had some painting. I looked again, so I wouldn't do the same ones. And so I love the Worcester Art Museum, but a lot of things from the Met and MoMA also, and all around the world. Poems of art and arts. The previous one to that was Wind in the Cave, which doesn't have a subtitle because it's about that feeling in your gut when you say something wrong, or a loved one becomes ill, or you can't have someone you crave, although it's not all about that, but it's that feeling. You know, wind in the cave. Right? Oh my gosh, what did I just say? So I might read one from that today. And then before that, from 2016 now, was stage-to-page poems from the theater. But it also includes cinema, dance, and and music, and concert music. There's a Leonard Bernstein poem.
These are all
here.
poets,
All poetry books. And then my first collection that came out it's called Manhattan Plaza.
Isn't that when we first were on the show?
That was the first time I was on the show. 2014 this came out. I think it was on the show in 15. Poems from New York City. Manhattan Plaza being not just the building I live in, but also the plaza being the common space that we all share, so public places of New York City, public experiences. And then the flow of the book as it gets more and more intimate. By part 6 of Manhattan Plaza, you're in my apartment. By part 5, you're in my apartment complex. By part 6, you're actually in my apartment. So there's a flow and a structure to all of these, and a theme to each collection I
now
have
the
so
most
far.
recent.
This is Fires of Heaven. This will give you a sample. I'm going to do more of the fun and easy ones, not the real hard to take ones that really burn you. And now, what does Fires of Heaven mean? Well, because when you question, of course, then you burn. If you start questioning or thinking with common sense, that's the burn. Or if you try to insist on something, that's the burn. So hopefully you may smolder from not only blind faith, but also through questioning contemplation and searing skepticism. So, however, we hope that this collection will help bring us closer not just to the Creator or the divine element, but to each other. Because we all share that. We're all part of the hand or the face or the skin of the divine miracle.
Right.
We all share in that. So it's not really combative. It's boom, this happened. For example, I'm not starting with this one. Maybe I have Shortcoming.
Yeah, we're talking with James B. Nicola, and he is a poet, and he has been a stage director. He's from New York City. Go for it.
Yeah, this is called Shortcoming. I have a shortcoming that makes me a nasty, ungrateful creature. I know. My gifts abound, and I have so much to be thankful for, and all that breathes is holy. Yes, I know, but I have some limits. 1, the slug. 2, the cockroach. Add to this the tsetse fly. Then Hitler and the like. They cannot be indulged as Adam and Eve did the serpent, who, after all, was but an instrument voicing the will of God. The critters on this list, though, I cannot believe they are from God at all, although I know it's so. And so I squash them, or wish that I could. Worse, am unbothered by this shortcoming.
When did you write that one?
The last 20 years.
Okay.
I work on all these poems for all the time and keep rewriting. And this is a little milder one called Checking. Checking. The baker clicks the oven light and peeks. The carpenter plops his level down and squints. The poodle tours the upstairs hall and sniffs. The parent tips the crib with an air-blown kiss. The pilot rereads the dials on his dash, particularly during or before a storm. The poet peers out a familiar window, the familiar, like a guardian angel, in. But God, or gods that some have forged and puffed beyond the clouds, must be caught in the middle of a blink.
Wow.
And there's no period at the end
Very
of any of these.
no
lines.
period.
No period in this.
That's it.
In that one. It's hard to get the visuals.
James, before we forget,
Yeah.
how can they reach you?
Oh, me? This particular book is published by Shante Arts of Maine, but my new website address is sites, S-I-T-E-S, google.com/view, V-I-E-W, /James-B-Nicola. I used to have a simpler one, but Google just gave me that new one.
Yeah.
And I got to, so sites.google.com/view/James-B-Nicola. Lowercase, uppercase, I don't think it matters, but I know it works lowercase. Checking. Here's another sort of fun one. I don't want to skip this one. Remember on the night of the miracle of the divine birth, they called it the nights the animals didn't talk? There was a cartoon about that in the 60s or early 70s. This is called When They Spun. When they spun the story later, they made it the night that the animals talked. But I should hope it was rather the night that the humans didn't. That's the whole poem. It's just
Very
one
good.
thought.
That's short and to the point.
Short and to
I
the
like
point.
that.
Fun for y'all, I hope. Now, this one actually has a fire in it, and now I start with some rhyme and verse, and this is called Ballad Form because I tell the story of what happened. Now, remember what a creche is like the manger. Creche is another word for manger, the French one. And so, do I have to... I think that's all I have to gloss for you, creche. And it's called creche. You should have seen the Christmas creche inside our parish church. I paid $1 and made a wish under the chapel arch, then lit a votive candle. They had placed 12 dozen animals around the holly and hay, and there were 3 wise men, Mary, Joseph, and a cradle. You know the layout then? I felt right in the middle of the story and the scene. Then someone must have flicked an ash, in spite of the big red sign, and lit a straw, 'cause in a flash the church and creche were gone. The hay had been dry since August, and the figures were all wood, as if some mastermind had planned the end of them for good. Our parish had no funds to call upon, but we learned to pray by the sooty stones of a fallen wall and kneel on soggy hay.
Yours rhyme.
That one does. The others didn't so far.
I think I learned in
mostly
school that they
rhyme.
used to be. They were called haikus. That they didn't have to rhyme.
Haikus are not supposed to rhyme. Haiku
Okay, yeah.
are not supposed to rhyme.
Okay.
Yeah, I might do a haiku from Plaza or something like that. Oh, this one is another form, and it's actually called what the form is. It's called patty cake.
Patty cake.
And it goes in the form, in the rhythm of the patty cakes. And boom, remember when you were kids did
Yeah,
patty cake?
yeah.
That's actually the name of this. And for those that don't have the mythology, the gate being St. Peter's Gate, when you have to be, when you die, you've got to meet St. Peter at the pearly gates, and whether you find out whether you get in or not. Patty cake. Mrs. Pendergast swept through the gate to meet her maker and meet her fate. But absolutely mortified by who was there, she pooh-poohed everybody everywhere, so that in the end she came out okay. We never did believe she was going to stay.
What inspired you to that? What just comes to you, right?
Oh no, I spend time thinking about stuff and traveling with a little pad or a journal.
Yeah.
And when the thought crosses the mind, I write it down. And if it burns a few days, got to write the poem. It burns. So the notion that I don't know who I heard, can't believe who got into heaven. But remember, the poor, that scriptural thing about the poor, the last shall be first and the first shall be last, and blessed are the poor. Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is interesting to you all, but I grew up Catholic, and so when I heard that phrase, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And for 50 years I'm going, why are the poor in spirit blessed? And then only in the last few years since working on this volume I realized, blessed in spirit are the poor. It's not the poor in spirit, it should be blessed are the poor, comma, in spirit. There's no comma. I didn't get it for like 50 years, till just recently I went, they're blessed in spirit, even though they're poor materially, but they're blessed spiritually. I get it. I never got that.
But you do now.
I did, right. Yeah,
It's
but it
got
took thinking about it and realizing, oh, commas, that eats shoots and leaves, needs some commas.
Sure.
Right, the joy of commas. But it's better poetry for a grown-up, blessed are the poor in spirit, but you need the comma to make sense for a little kid. And I remember reading it going, what do you mean the poor in spirit? We have high spirits. You know, we're thinking school spirit and all that. I never could get it. Here's another rhymed one. Potential. And I thought about this forever, and then finally got this poem out of it. Potential. We do not know if God forgives. We can't. When we recite God saves, God loves, or Jesus lives, they may not, or they might. We graceless mortals, though, can learn to listen and adapt to lessons, love our foes, and turn the cheek that isn't slapped. The perfect deity cannot. Perfection isn't learned. So what we'll get is what we've got, as far as he's concerned. As great as he has always been, and unsurpassed in love, I'm sure. But we surpass him in potential to improve. Not that I'm proud, though man alone enjoys this differential of bettering himself, its only difference in potential.
Ah, that's good.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that sort of metaphysical thought about, if God is perfect, then we have more room for improvement.
Yeah.
So we can beat God on improving ourselves, but too often we don't.
James, did I direct you to WBZ in Boston, somewhere to be interviewed?
I did write to them, and I do keep them in my press releases, but so far I haven't. I have been on Woonsocket Radio several times. Woonsocket, right.
How about, WPRO Providence.
Yeah.
Woonsocket, what are their call letters?
WF, I forget now.
Is it talk radio?
No, yeah, it is in the
All right, I'll
morning.
look it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I'll send you the.
Okay.
No, they don't put it online. It's live. It's live radio show
Yeah.
in the morning. The Poets Corner at 9:45.
Oh my
So
gosh!
he
Living
calls-
from New York City, you drove up there for that hour?
No. He does me on the phone. He calls me when he has needs a substitution. Wayne Barber is
Wayne
the show.
Barber.
It's the Wayne
Okay.
Barber show.
All right. I had a feeling you had been on somewhere.
Right. Yeah. This is another one about the end of life. Chimes. This just crossed my mind one day, and it's called Chimes. No chimes, no choir, no morning rites, no marble 12 feet tall. For me, they'll merely dim the lights, and silence may be all. Or strike a rusted, tongueless bell and crack it when I'm dead. The pearly gates part just as well. Better, some have said.
James, where are you going to be appearing?
Don't have any yet.
No, really?
No, it's still COVID time. I did just do the New York City Poetry Festival at the end of July.
How was that?
It was wonderful. It was outdoors, made a lot of new friends. It was stunning.
Did you sell a lot of books?
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
I did. I was shocked.
They've been cooped up for a long time.
Yeah,
Boy,
yeah.
they can't wait to get some new books.
Yeah, and some was a publisher that was just so nice to buy my book, just to buy it, because I met him a few years ago.
Yeah.
I said, "Hello, do you remember me? He's so nice." He's
But nothing
Latino.
coming up yet.
No events coming up that are live yet. It's still in New York. Our writers group, I moderate a writers group. We're hoping that in September we'll be able to meet again live. We were doing some Google groups or Zoom meetings, but live, but in the library in our downstairs room. But still, we'll have to be separated a bit with masks. But they're just trying to get the mugginess out from being closed so long.
Yeah.
The library's open again upstairs.
Ooh,
masks on.
This is open too.
Yeah, masks on, but the downstairs function room, they got to air it out, so
Right.
it's going to take a while. So those were two that had a little bit to do with death, as it were. That return, that link that we're all have in common. We all born, died, we all share in the divine presence. But this is another notion, and all that all has ever been, the junkyard dog chained out in back, with just enough give on his leash to make him proud to think he catches his own food.
Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Good. James, again, how can they reach you or get your books?
Yes. Then I got one more from this one. It's my website, call letter, so to speak, is sites, S-I-T-E-S, sites.google.com/view, V-I-E-W, /James-B-Nicola. And it'll have order information. And in there, if you go through the pages, you'll find my phone number, my email address. If you want to email me directly, it's nicolajamesb@juno.com, J-U-N-O. And Nicola James B, NICOLAJAMESB, nicolajamesb@juno.com.
James, where are your favorite places to present? I bet senior centers in New York City would love to have you come.
Oh, yeah, and I've done several here, too. Holden and Lunenburg senior centers and whatnot. Yeah, I love it.
Menden?
Love it.
They're good too.
Wonderful.
They're very well known
Yeah.
for having it. I've had
Right.
sent authors
Right.
over there.
I do library events, and then there's lots of poetry series.
Yeah.
We do there's a lot of poetry reading series in Greater New York and the Northeast. So I hook up with. I've done powwow poets in Newburyport. They're so smart that they bought tons of books when I was the
bought
feature.
them at Newburyport. When?
In Newburyport, a few years ago.
Oh.
They're now doing only Zoom things, so
Yeah.
it's hard to sell books until the live.
There's nothing like
performances
in
start.
person, really.
It's really better in person.
Yeah.
Also because I guess they saw me performing live, so the poems seemed clear, and I gotta have one of those books, as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. This is not the final poem, and it's the newest one that was added into Fires of Heaven. Since the book got accepted, this poem got published, and I asked for this to be the final poem in the book. And the publisher said, no, that's really a good idea, because it's called. It's a sonnet.
Yeah.
So remember, 14 lines.
Yeah.
To help you think. To help you think of God, think of tomorrow, or vice versa. Tomorrow can't be seen or held. Tomorrow does not weigh, and yet you know tomorrow's always coming. But tomorrow, once it does arrive, is gone. Tomorrow's never here, is never now, and yet tomorrow is responsible for very nearly everything. And any depiction can be only science fiction. To help you think of God, think next of love, or vice versa, which is the way tomorrow comes to us, as with a kiss, or the eternal hope thereof. That is tomorrow. That is God. That's love, like hope, like thought.
You are taking a different turn in your poetry. It's becoming, I've noticed, about death, God. Have you been thinking about mortality a lot?
Yeah, but I often do, because I love what we call the metaphysical poets, and Blake, although he's a romantic poet, is also linked in with the metaphysical poets sometimes
Right.
too. But the and I mentioned them in a previous Be My Guest interview.
Yeah.
Marvell, John Donne, before and after Shakespeare, but also Emily Dickinson, Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, and there are other metaphysical.
Yeah, I've noticed
poets
the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll do. And even the Mrs. Pendergast poem, which seems funny and silly and a social send-up, has to do with what happens to Mrs. Pendergast if she gets to the pearly gates and doesn't like who she sees. We better address that in this lifetime, perhaps. I don't know. But even the light stuff is not just light. There's an underbelly of substance that is, and really this book is about thinking of those things that bind us all, those things that unite us to the first moment, the last moment, the biggest, the smallest, and to each other. And it's so important that we find a way to link to each other.
Can you get it on Amazon?
This is, sure, they're all available, everything's available on Amazon. Maybe not the India Indian book, Quickening, but that's available at cyberwit.net. But it'll have all that information on my website on the poetry page. There's another one called Order Information, so I'll try to keep that up to date for you. And this is Shanty Arts. They'd love to have you order right from that. They also publish the Out of Nothing collection. So,
do you think that you're going to kind of head more towards and staying with poetry and away from stage directing? How do you think?
probably.
You think so?
Right, because this is like children.
You love this stuff.
They're gonna outlive me, and I'm not a film director, so the stuff that I direct would not outlive me.
Yeah.
I love the live. I love the live performance and the hope and also the incredible notion that it might not happen. It doesn't happen the same tonight, but it might not even happen tonight.
Do you have live orchestras for the musicals that you were doing?
Oh, sure.
Oh man, that is. Did you ever go on hiatus to the Cape Cod Melody Tent?
No.
Boy,
Not as an adult to see a musical, but in junior high, that was where. That was where Macbeth played, but we saw it at the North Shore.
The North Shore, yeah, okay.
Right. The North Shore, but it was on the tour, right? Yeah.
Gertrude Lawrence and her husband Richard. Well, I just forgot, completely slipped my mind. But anyway, they owned the Cape Cod Playhouse, the Cape Playhouse. I think up in Dennis.
Right. Yeah.
And
No,
a lot of
there's
places.
been a lot of theater in New England. I've done a lot of stuff up here as well as New York and all over the country.
I
And it's
remember
always-
the Melody Tent. My father, I was a little kid, he began taking us there.
Right.
Theater in the round, and the actors run up and down the aisles.
Right.
They do that at
So they used to have a
Cass.
circuit of 10 of those theaters in the round, and it was the North Shore Music Circus, it used to be called, because it was full round. And the Cape Cod were on the same circuit, so that the show would go from one to the other to the other.
Did you see Cats at the Schubert Theater? Did you see that in New York City?
Yes.
Those
But
animals, the kids, you go down the aisles.
Yes, but you know what? In London, if you saw the original production of Cats, it was in the full round.
It was in the round?
The original production of Cats from London was in the round, so when they came down the aisles to enter. They adapted it for the Winter Garden in New York City, but
Maybe that's where I saw it, the Winter Garden.
right,
It was
that's
back
where
in
it ran.
1986. I don't know. We're talking again with James B. Nicola.
About theater. Yeah, I should read
resident,
something from Stage to Page or something like that.
Our resident
But,
poet from New York
yeah.
City,
Yeah.
and he has brought all these that he has written with him, and the newest one.
The newest one is Fires of Heaven, Poems of Faith and Sense.
We've got about 4 minutes left.
4 minutes left?
Yeah, what would you like to read to us?
Then I'll read then something brief from Stage to Page to give you an idea of what this one is like. And this is a piece of art itself by a rather famous artist, and it was nominated to be on an exhibit at the Louvre Museum by a photography magazine, Misanthrope. Do you remember the character, the misanthrope,
I've heard
that,
of it,
that
yeah.
hated
Yeah.
people, hated mankind?
Yeah.
Misanthrope. This is another short one for a coda. Misanthrope. Would you incur the insight of the skeptic who suffers the society of fools as rudely as the stricken epileptic who throbs and howls and cannot follow rules? Of course not. Therefore keep me out of sight, particularly when you know I'm right. And you've all known somebody like that, right? But Moliere wrote a great play called The Misanthrope.
Is your family enjoying this?
I hope so. Yeah. I hope
Yeah.
so too,
Do you get many hits online, people who commenting?
Yeah.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next? I have a collection called Natural Tendencies of Nature Poetry that's coming out, and I have a collection that just got accepted called Tower of Babel, Poems from the Apocalypse.
And when will that be out?
It was supposed to be August, but now it's delayed. Both of them are delayed from this year for some reason, but so they're in the works.
Yeah.
But so again, both thematic, and I'm just so excited that I have two still in the works, and probably a third that a publisher of Quickening has asked for another one, and I just
We've got
finally
another one
ready.
for him to share with us. We'll have
Might
you
be
back
three.
again.
Might be three.
Usually.
Three more within 2 years. I go, well, that's a little too much. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. I'm not rushing the publishers because one a year is a good rhythm. 2 a year is like hard.
We usually have James on at least once a year.
Once a book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
once
a
a
book.
book,
So
right.
that other one's coming up.
Yeah. Right.
James, one more time. How can they reach you?
They can reach me. My website is sites, sites, sites.google.com/view/James-B-Nicola, Nicola. Or just my email, nicolajamesb@juno.com.
And yeah.
It's Nicola with a C.
And if you would like to have him come and speak, give a presentation. Just contact him.
And for churches too, particularly, I'll come and do poetry reading from Fires of Heaven on a Sunday, anywhere driving distance. I mean,
or even the synagogues,
or
right?
synagogue, absolutely. Yep.
Sounds
Yep.
good to me. James, we're going to have you back. He comes in all the way from New York City. You were visiting down up in Wayland.
I'm going to be Wayland tonight and Hartford last night, so this is right in the middle.
And you don't mind all that traveling.
Love it.
You won't
Love
fly,
it.
though.
I don't drive in New York City. I take the car to get out of New York City and drive.
You just take the train in New York City?
Walk.
You're
Walk.
kidding.
Walk, yeah. Oh, I'll drive to Harlem on a Sunday because you can park on the street.
Yeah.
But most Midtown Manhattan, the car is not for everything's
No, it's
wacky.
it's worse than Boston, right? Maybe?
It's not worse than Worcester.
Okay, I
Worcester's
got
worse.
it.
In Boston, they talk about Worcester, although they redid Kelly Square, but it's almost worse.
Oh!
But it is safer. But have you been to? Oh my gosh! I did drive with my brother Kelly Square. I go, oh my God, they got the whole thing organized, but it's still a mess.
You take your life in your hands in Kelly Square in Worcester.
And
I hate it.
at the Arc of Triumph, right, Les 12 big avenues come together in Paris. There are no traffic lights, but they know that Kelly Square with no traffic lights before
Yeah, I know.
was worse. I heard a taxi cab driver, oh, that's not as bad as Boston or Worcester. In French, they'd heard about, this is nothing compared to Worcester. Somebody had told the cab driver, oh, this isn't bad. And they're pretty good taxi drivers, and they're big, broad, if you see those areas of Paris. But Worcester's famous for its...
James, you're going to be back, right?
Yeah,
Let me know about that book, and we'll
anytime.
get him back on again.
Wonderful.
He'll drive all the way out.
All the way.
I cannot believe it. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you
my
for
guest.
having me.
Then it seems moving through the cloudless sky, heading out toward the moon. I am dancing to the lunar tune.